Imagine managing a logistics company where customer demand change every month. Buy too many trucks and you waste money. Buy too few and you rely on costly outsourcing. So what's the right balance? Today we'll show how Monte Carlo simulation help us answer the question. Stay tuned.
Hello everyone, we are from Group 103 and today we will present our management science project using Affa Harin Logistic Company as our case study. Our project is simulation-based fleet size planning under demand uncertainty. We are aiming to evaluate whether the company's current fleet is sufficient to meet future transportation demand and whether purchasing additional trucks or continuing to outsource transportation is a better long-term strategy. Throughout this presentation, we will introduce the company, explain our simulation model, present the results, and conclude with our recommendations. Next, let's look at how company transportation process work. The transportation process begins with when the customer submit a shipment request with the pickup location, destination, cargo details, and delivery date. The company then assigns an available truck and driver before the truck travel to pick up and deliver the goods. After delivery, the truck either returns with another shipment or return empty if no backhaul is available. Finally, the truck undergoes inspection and maintenance while operational data such as distance.
Now let's move on to revenue performance. Revenue remained relatively stable in 2024. Operating expenses continue to increase, however. As a result, net profit decreased because operating costs increased faster than revenue by approximately 33% compared to 2023. This indicates an opportunity to improve operational efficiency by reducing transportation costs. Next is financial statement. Transportation expense declined by approximately 43% from 2023 to 2024, indicating lower reliance on outsourced transportation services. Fuel expense increased by 65% in only 2 years, despite transportation expense decreasing. Drivers' overtime has also consistently exceeded the regular driver's salary. Although transportation expense declined, internal operating costs continue to increase. This indicates that pressure has shifted from outsourced transportation toward internally operated fleet activities. Our first problem is uncertain transportation demand, and next one is dependence on outsourced trucks. So our objective is to determine the appropriate fleet size under uncertain transportation demand and evaluate whether purchasing additional trucks or continue to outsource transportation is the most cost-effective strategy while maintaining acceptable service level. The impact to the company is that this supports data-driven fleet expansion decision, and it also evaluates the trade-off between purchasing and outsourcing trucks. Lastly, it also improves fleet planning while maintaining customer service levels.
The critical data we've collected from the company are the truck number, which show how many trips each truck have traveled, the date going up from southern to central, and the date down, which means from the central of Thailand down to the south. And then we have the total distance in kilometers for the whole trip up and down. We have the origins and destination for the whole trip. We have the revenue earned per trip, revenue up and revenue down. And lastly, we have the total fuel cost used per trip. Our reference journal demonstrates how Monte Carlo simulation can be used to evaluate alternatives under uncertain demands. This supports our approach to determine the optimal fleet size and the buy versus rent decision we're making. We have followed the same methodology in our project. First, we collect the company historical transportation demand, revenue, fuel consumption, and any cost. Next, we calculated the mean and standard deviation and used this value as inputs for our simulation. Then each simulation will generate a different monthly demand, and then we can calculate the cost, the revenue that we get from it. Finally, we can compare different fleet sizes to determine whether buying more trucks or should the company rent for its demand.
Next, I would like to explain how we forecast the demand. We base this forecast on the past data of 20 and 25. We calculate the mean and the standard deviation because the demand is normally distributed. We also take into account the growth rate of the demand per year, which is in this case 16.2%. And the average new demand of the 2026 was calculated by the mean and the standard deviation of the demand in the past data. So you can see the result in the table here. Next is the service level table. We want to see how many demand we can fulfill without borrowing more trucks. So there will be a list of number of trucks and the forecasted demand on average. and the demand that we are able to fulfill without renting. And the last column is the service level. As you can see here, that the number of trucks that we have right now is not enough to fulfill the demand with the service level of only 19%. We also calculated the confidence interval. With 95% confident interval, we want to see the profit, the revenue, the outsourcing cost, and the outsourced trucks. These information are based on the 1000 Monte Carlo trials, and it estimate the range in which the average rental cost is expected to lie. You can see in the base case scenario that outsourcing costs never drop to zero, which proved the point that the company needs more trucks to fulfill their demand and improve overall.
Okay, so for scenario A, we're looking at what happens if the company just keep things the way they are. If they stick with their 17 trucks and outsourcing whenever demand is higher than they could handle. So if we see here when demand stays low, around 15 to 17 trucks needed, there's literally zero outsourcing cost. It is great, but the moment that the demand spikes above that, the outsourcing cost starts to climbing up all the way to about 500 and 2,000 baht when you need 24 trucks in a month. And for the profit, it sits around 3.22 million baht when demand matches their fleet, but it drops to around 2,720,000 at peak demand. That's roughly at 19% drop in profit. So the more they have to outsource, the worse it gets financially. Driver salary stays flat at 255,000 since the number of the drivers doesn't change. Basically, scenario A is cheap to maintain when the demand is low, but it gets costly fast when things picks up. Now for scenario B is where I think it's interesting. So instead of only owning 17 trucks, we actually ask if the company have bought more trucks according to the demand. So if you add more trucks, of course the outsourcing cost would drop because the more capacity you rent less. And however, there's a catch where if the trucks have increased, the driver's salary also goes up. So from 225,000 baht at the 15 trucks, it goes all the way to 360,000 baht at 24 trucks. And then there's also the opportunity cost of capital, which is basically saying, hey, that money you spend buying a truck could have been invested elsewhere at a 10% return. And when you account for all that, the profit actually peaks at just 15 trucks at about 3.18 million baht, and then it steadily drops the more you add the trucks. So at 24 trucks, you're actually down to 2.96 million baht. So as for the KPI on the demand side, the average monthly demand we're forecasting is about 127 trips with a standard deviation of around 7.76. So there's a real variability there. In the worst month, the demand can hit only just 153 trips. For fleet utilizations, the simulation says on average you need about 19.7 trucks, but the company only owns 17. So on average, they short by about 3 trucks per month, and the utilization rate is 1.16, meaning that the fleet is being pushed beyond its capacity. Financially, average monthly revenue comes out to around 6.47 million baht, and operating profit is roughly 3.71 million, which gives a 57% profit margin, which sounds decent, but remember, this is before accounting for the structural truck shortage. And then the decision KPIs are probably the most useful part. Annual outsourcing cost if they keep renting is about 3.919 million baht. Buying one truck costs 2 million baht upfront, but then you save on renting, so it's rent versus buy trade-off. The company actually has numbers to work with now. The suggestion from the model is a fleet size of 20 trucks, which would help cover the average shortage of 2.74 trucks per month.
Now let's move on to our management science analysis. Our finding shows that the true average requirement is 19 to 20 trucks, which means the company has shortage of roughly 3 to 4 trucks every month. Also, the company's average monthly rental truck expense is approximately 44,000 baht. By quantifying this risk, we move the company away from reactive emergency rental toward proactive data-driven budgeting.